Hi guys, welcome. This tutorial is all about plank pose. You might want a block for this pose. I will be showing you a variation with a block. If you don't have a block, you can use a sturdy book. That will work just fine as well. Other than that, you might want a yoga mat. So go ahead, unroll your mat, and we'll get started. So plank pose is one of my favorite poses. It's a great place to build strength in the entire body, just top to bottom. So we are going to start setting it up from the top with the hands, with the arms, what all has to happen there. So let's get to it. Go ahead and bring the hands to the earth. You want to spread the fingers, not straining them too wide, but you want to spread them pretty wide, get a nice amount of surface area underneath you. And you want to have the wrists right underneath the shoulders. And you might need to come forward a little bit more than you think. The tendency is to kind of lean back here. You want to bring the shoulders right above the wrists. And what you want to do in your plank pose is press the earth away. So what often happens is we tend to collapse here. The chest starts to collapse down, and we want to do the opposite of that. So really pressing the earth away, creating length in the arms. You should feel the shoulder blades sort of spread on your back here. So almost like you're going to come into a cat spine without rounding the back. So just that pressing of the earth away. And the head, you want to bring the gaze towards the front edge of your mat. So you don't want to lift too much so that you're craning the neck, but what often happens is we're looking down like this and you get a crook in the neck this way. So we want to bring the gaze towards the front edge of the mat so we have a nice long neck, creating length. So this is what's happening in the arms, the shoulders, the head, the neck. We'll continue to build down. So we'll stay with the knees on the earth, but go ahead and walk the knees back so that they're at an angle. Now make sure that as you do this, you don't lean back on the arms. The arms stay stacked. So shoulders stay above the wrist, the knees go back, and you should feel the belly start to wake up here. So this is a modified plank, and this is an incredible amount of work all on its own, and also a wonderful place to build strength for your full plank pose. Now notice if the hips start to sag down here, make sure that you are lifting the navel towards the spine. You're still pressing the earth away, gaze towards the front edge of the mat. So the belly is pulling up and in. And now we're going to take the variation with the block here. So go ahead and come on out and take the block in between the thighs. So we can play with this while on the knees, and then we will lift the knees and play with it with the knees lifted. So with the block in between the thighs, go ahead, walk it out. So you want to be at an angle with the lower body, but with the hands, the wrists right underneath the shoulders. So set up the hands, pressing down, press the earth away, lifting the gaze, and then gently pressing in towards the block. So you should feel the pelvic floor starting to lift, the lower belly starting to lift up, navel is pulling up towards the spine. Yeah, lovely. So this is a great place to stay to build strength if plank pose feels like too much for you. Now to come into full plank, what you'll do is you'll tuck your toes underneath, and everything is going to stay right where it is. You're simply going to lift the knees up off the earth, coming into your plank. So what happens a lot is the shoulders will come back sort of somewhere in between a downward facing dog and plank. So I see this happening a lot, which is easier on the body, but also creates misalignment in the wrists and in the shoulders. So really you want to bring the shoulders above the wrists. What also tends to happen, I'll show you without the block, what tends to happen in plank pose is the belly starts to sag down. Notice if this happens for you, this is going to put a lot of strain on the low back, so you want to pull the navel up towards the spine, keep pressing the earth away. So you feel the shoulder blades spread. It's almost like you're trying to round the back. And we'll do this again with the block in between the thighs. Go ahead, set yourself up. Pressing the earth away. Pull the navel in. And then lifting the knees. Press into the block. So you want active legs. The more active the legs, the less work the rest of the body has to do. And the heels are going to reach towards the back wall. Gaze towards the front edge of the mat. If you're shaking a little bit, it's working. Go ahead, lower down. So staying with the knees down is a perfect place to stay as you build strength here, or on days when just regular plank pose is just not happening or you're just not feeling it. Bring the knees down. Allow yourself to modify. Staying properly aligned in plank pose is super important, particularly because we are bearing weight on the wrists. So I recommend before and after practicing a lot of plank poses to do some wrist rolls, some wrist stretches, taking your fists and rolling them one way and then the other. You can also clasp the hands and kind of roll the wrists. Also helpful to do some, I don't know what to call these, flash fingers, I guess. Opening and closing fists and rolling the wrists. So let's try that one more time. Coming into plank pose, we can leave the block to the side for this time, unless you really like that, in which case, by all means, please do. Go ahead and bring the hands onto the earth. Shoulders right above the wrists. Set yourself up here. Make sure that this foundation is nice and sturdy. The gaze towards the front edge of the mat. Notice if the belly's already starting to sag down, and pull the navel up towards the spine. Get nice and firm in the belly, like you're pulling the pubic bone up towards the navel a little bit. And the pelvic floor is pulling up, Mula Bandha. And then from here, extending one leg long, and then bringing the other leg to meet it. Another way to modify this is to lower one knee. So you can do one leg extended, one knee down, and then switching. So if this two knees down feels a little bit too easy, you want to start to play with lifting the knees. You can start with one knee and then the other, and then gradually build to lifting both knees off the earth. Now remember to maintain active legs here, so kneecaps pulling up towards the hip points. Beautiful. And then release. Remembering to take some wrist rolls, some wrist stretches, super important if you're bearing a lot of weight on the wrists. If you practice vinyasa or ashtanga, you will spend a lot of time with weight on the wrists in your planks, your chaturangas, your downward facing dogs, if you practice arm balances. So giving the wrists a little bit of love is nice. So this is your plank pose. If you have any questions about this posture, please throw them down below. If anything about what I just described was confusing, please ask about that as well. I hope this has been useful and you can use these tips in your plank pose practice. Have yourself an awesome rest of your day. Namaste.